Today we're talking about a bunch of group practice related questions, which we're always excited about. We're going to dig into some marketing. We're going to dig into some cash pay issues. We're going to dig into some recruitment. We're going to kind of talk about the spread of a couple different things here. So definitely just tune in, because if you are a group practice or you even want to become a group practice, we're going to be dropping some of the details that we are consistently talking about inside of our private program. At Therapy Flow, we work day in and day out right now with about 60 group practices at the moment inside of our program, actively on a monthly basis, solving problems related to recruitment, marketing, sales, systems and operations, and a number of other things. So we're going to be kind of just answering questions through the lens of what we've seen solve, with some of our group practice owners.
Yeah.
That being said, where did that first question go? Birdie asks us, finding therapists to hire is difficult. What is the best way to do this for group owners? So just the recruitment question.
Yeah. I think getting aligned around the actual opportunity that you have available and what does that result look like for you is going to be super helpful and freeing. One therapist is worth $30,000 to sometimes $70,000, $100,000 annually for a group practice, whether you're insurance or cash. And so knowing that it's okay to spend money to sort of position yourself to make that happen is a really big component. I think so many therapists are in the client acquisition mode when they go to recruiting, but when you're recruiting for therapists, you have none of the quote unquote ethical constraints that you have when you're doing client acquisition. And so you can get really scrappy. You can advertise for clinicians. You can spend the money, the time, and the energy on places like Indeed and otherwise. I put together a really awesome hire your first therapist piece of content that if you guys want it, maybe just comment below, I want it, and we'll send it to you guys. And it just breaks down really everything that it's required to do. And a lot of it is just come up with an amazing job description, post your post, know whether you want associates or licensed clinicians, and then especially for the first few hires, don't compromise. Get the full-time clinician. Make sure that you have a path to get them full, and do some of those other things. So spend the money, take the time. It's worth it. At the end of the year, you're going to see a big bump in your pay.
Yeah, and just to highlight that, in terms of spending the money, just as Attilio said, if you do it right and you fill out this clinician, unlike an admin front office staff or even in some other businesses where you have to hire just to fulfill your product, right? In this case, you make more money every single session that a therapist does on your team. And so you can just kind of run your numbers saying, hey, how much can I afford to pay up front to get this person back? What's my break-even point? If I spend $5,000 on a recruiter to help me book these interviews, right? How long until I make my money back on that? Do they have to work for me for 1 month, for 2 months, for 3 months? I'm guessing it's somewhere in the range of 2 to 12 weeks of full sessions that you would actually turn a profit on this person. And what's crazy is if you spent 3 to 6 months or more trying to recruit for positions that aren't getting filled, then eventually you'll turn the corner and start losing money every single month that this person is not in place. And you're probably not going to have to spend $5,000 to fill this role, but when Indeed asks you if you want to sponsor the post, when some of these paid listing sites ask you if you want to list your job position, and it's a few $100 or maybe even totals across a couple months, a few $1,000, just know that probably you're going to be on the correct side of that math if you treat this like a good business decision. And the other thing is you also can do activities or actions, and I'll give you 3 of them that aren't just posting on job listing sites. Number 1 is cold outreach. And this might sound crazy, but this could be looking up lists of therapists on BetterHelp in your area and messaging them on LinkedIn, asking them if they're open to new opportunities, or finding lists in whatever way you want, through LinkedIn, through Facebook groups, or other things, and sending outbound messages in that way. Number two is running Facebook ads for your own practice. This is something we've done with our therapists. You essentially create a Facebook ad, you put some sort of daily budget behind it, and you advertise it for the state or the area that you're looking to hire in. And then number three, which I kind of mentioned earlier, is you could hire a recruitment agency to do all the work for you. And typically they do a really good job at this because they either are getting paid on performance or they're getting paid a retainer to do this, and they'll just deliver 3 to 5 candidates typically in batches until you find the multiple people that you're looking for. And then you don't have to spend almost any time on this process because they're sourcing and they're messaging and they're doing the work.
Yeah, I love it.
So, as we dig in from here, is Facebook, Susie asks us, marketing even worth it?
I mean, we've got clinicians in our program that are getting like $5 leads, building massive lists, and converting clients. Yeah. And so if that sounds like something that you want, then I think it's worth it. If that doesn't sound like something you want, then don't do them. Yeah. So I'd say, we've got private practices that have like 70 clinicians in them that are running ads, and I mean, on the orders of magnitudes of like thousands of dollars a month, and they're getting clients and you're not. And yeah. So, I mean, if you want to dig into an area where people are getting clients, then I would say do it. So if you have a great offer, if you know who you're marketing to, and maybe you like the Facebook ad vibe, like, do them. The only caveat I'd say is typically Facebook people aren't necessarily looking for therapy right now. And so oftentimes you'll have to generate a few extra opportunities to get one client. And I think a lot of small practices get emotionally burnt out on seeing the numbers come through because it's a lot of volume. Maybe they're not used to. They're used to something like Psych Today, where you get one person who reaches out, 1 or 2 or 3 people who reach out, and then 1 or 2 of those people turn into clients. It's not like that. And so you just have to maybe emotionally be equipped and ready to be able to maybe change your mindset about what the acquisition looks like. And it doesn't mean that they're bad people or like they're not going to afford your stuff or they're not ideal or whatever. It just means it's a different type of system.
And I'll use the analogy, if you have been used to swimming in like warm, like room temperature pools your entire life, that's been your experience with swimming, and then you go to a lake like Lake Michigan, or you go to the ocean, swimming is still swimming. Marketing is still marketing. Sales calls are still sales calls, right? However, it is a different experience. The taste of the water, the waves, the smells, and it does take a little bit to get acclimated to. And that would be a little bit of an analogy of, sometimes when you've spent the last 5 years, however long, essentially only swimming in perfectly controlled small batch environments. Hey, these 5 people gave me referrals. These 10 people came from Psych Today. Jumping in the big wide ocean of Facebook marketing or paid advertising can be a very different textual experience. And so there's a little bit of acclimation, and I'd use a different term, maybe like culture shock, right? Advertising in that compared to your psychology today. We have hundreds of practices that have seen success in Facebook, and there are thousands upon thousands of practices that, see success in Facebook. So it's worth it, but be prepared for a little bit of acclimation and maybe ask yourself if you're struggling. It's like, oh, is this like culture shock, or is this like something not working that I have to go through?
Yeah. Great point.
So as we dig in on that, kind of as a secondary, Erica asks us, how do you market a group practice when I can only accept cash pay? So I'll use Neil's story. He might have even made some posts here in like the Facebook group. I know there's a live interview with him if you're on our YouTube channel as well, that you can go watch his 0 to 30K a plus month journey as a cash pay group practice. And he talks about a couple things that he had going for him before they joined Therapy Flow as a client and the things that they worked on. And I'll kind of quickly summarize both, and then I just suggest go and watch that full interview that you can find in multiple places. Number one is he listed out all of his channels that he was getting cash pay clients from. It was a paid channel, so they were running Google ads specifically, and they had gone back and forth and run Facebook and Google. They might be running both now still. He had an organic channel, so he was doing search engine optimization on his website, and then he had listing sites. So him and all the therapists in their organization were on, probably 7 to 10 different listing sites. The Psych Todays, the Good Therapies. They even did some ZocDoc for a little while, just some of those things. And those were their 3, as we would call them, inputs that they were using to get new clients. We obviously help them dial those in and like make those really effective for themselves. But the hard part is the answer doesn't change depending on if you're insurance or if you're cash pay for where you get clients. Now, they did some really good work. They had a really beautiful website, which isn't always necessary, especially if you're running Facebook ads. And they really worked hard on being detailed oriented for their sales process, meaning when they did get leads coming in, they worked really hard at the scripting, the tone, the flow, their offer as a cash pay practice. So they marketed in all the same pools that all the insurance-based practices market in, right? They just did it better, essentially. Not just to generate the leads, but once the leads came their way, convert the leads in the sales sector that we call it. Anything to add there, Attilio?
Yeah, I'd say too, I think so many clinics try being cash with no basis for being cash. And I think oftentimes the basis needs to be some level of authority, some level of desirability to work with you or with the company, and that desirability can come from a lot of different angles. For Neil's practice, for example, they had a book, they had a podcast, they had several items that were like great places to display their authority, display what it is that they're going through. And then I think the other thing to note is that they were working in the same pools. They're just looking for in market leads. They had more conversations than an insurance practice did, and they ended up finding great results and like highly profitable results too. And so I think we just need to like brace ourselves for like maybe the uncomfortable truth that if you're a group that does cash pay, you need to have a lot of conversations. You need to have something of desire to your market, to your audience, and you need to be able to run people through the conversation, the selling conversation, and eventually close those clients. So that might be the only thing I would like emphasize.
Yeah.
And so there's not much that needs to change, and that might not be the answer that you wanted to hear, but it's all the same stuff.
We have a couple additional questions just on marketing. What's best? Referrals, SEO, and a lot of other things. Let's sit in this the relationship between marketing, sales, and recruitment for our group practice owners. This is what we would call a feedback loop, right? If you do your marketing well enough, and then sales is kind of the glue that holds this together, right? You got to convert these clients. That's just how we see it. You're going to inevitably fill out your therapists, and then either you have a full practice, you're happy with the size of it, and it's just about perpetuity, or if you want to grow it all, you have to recruit more team members or add more services. And then if you recruit more team members, you have empty slots on your calendar. Maybe your marketing fills in some of them, but then you have to go back to the marketing bucket. Sometimes there's a side channel, you got to hire admin, or you got to build some better systems or tracking or operations. But primarily, if you're in the growth phase of being a group practice owner, your main bottleneck is either going to be marketing or recruitment. And then sometimes, like if it's going to be your operations, your team, your lead skills, and some of those things. But marketing and recruitment are going to be your main 2 bottlenecks. And these problems don't go away for as long as you are trying to grow and expand in size. The problems actually only get bigger in a good way, right? Instead of needing 100 sessions booked a month, I now need 1,000 sessions booked a month. I now need 5,000 sessions booked a month, right? But the cool thing is it's very correlative for the impact that you're making. meaning, wow, 5,000 sessions are happening under my roof through my care, right? 25 therapists are now working under my umbrella, having the impact in the community in a really direct, translated way. And so when you're consistently solving for those two problems, what you're actually solving for is the size, the volume of your impact. Cash showing up is a byproduct of that. A good business on the other end of those two things is a good byproduct of that. So just be my encouragement for some of you as you ask these questions and you're trying to solve these problems. In some ways, don't think that this problem goes away. For as long as you are trying to grow your business up and beyond where it's currently at, you will always be solving marketing problems and recruitment problems, just at various sizes and scale.
Yeah. And the original question, it was about like what works. Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, you go where the eyeballs are, right? So who is it that you want to attract? On the marketing end, it's your prospective clients. On the recruiting end, it's your prospective therapists, your prospective fulfillers. So
Yeah.
write out bait that makes sense for your audience. On the recruiting end, what would attract a therapist that you want to work with? On the client generating end, what would attract a client that you want to work with?
Yeah.
And then sales is going to be sales. Sales. Yeah. You just close it in, you follow up, do the actions, and turn around and make it happen. And so as far as marketing goes, all the things that you've heard can work, probably do work. So like social media, ads, podcasts, I mean, they all have varying degrees of who can you get in front of, where can you get in front of them, how can you get in front of them, and what can you be consistent with is maybe what I would just recommend. And so it's really easy to be consistent with an Indeed post. It's really easy to be consistent with a paid ad that you're just paying money to. So keep that in mind.
And the last piece there is know that if you are able to sort of max out one strategy or one input before moving on to making another one a consistent part of your practice, that's the number one piece of advice that we give when someone's working on the marketing bucket of things. Have we gotten as much as we can out of our listing sites? Okay, let's do that before we launch the Facebook ad. Have we gotten as much as we can out of the Facebook ad reasonably, right, for the size of business you're at or the budget you have before doing search engine optimization? Are you doing the volume for search engine optimization before we move on to looking at social media or launching a newsletter or something like that? Because essentially, if we do 10% of our effort across 10 different strategies, then we're not doing any to the volume that will actually start to make a difference for us across a longer period of time. And so just as a really big encouragement, ask yourself, am I working on 5 or 6 different things right now when really I need to put all the time into a single bucket or into 1 or 2 big buckets, right? A short-term strategy and a long-term strategy, and segment those appropriately.
More, better, new.
More, better.
Order.
Yeah.
More first, then better, then new.
Yeah. And just to talk about the search engine optimization piece a little bit, more would look like going from 0 blogs to maybe 4 blogs a month. Better might look like just increasing the length and the quality from a search engine perspective. And then new could look like actually doing 8 blogs a month and doing that flow a couple times on an SEO level before even going to like social media or paid ads or something else, right? Or, right, hey, SEO is going to take 6 to 18 months to see a good result for, and I'm at pace, I'm doing 4 to 6 blogs a month. Now I can also look at launching that newsletter, which my site can also benefit from, and my ads can also benefit from, and whatever else. Guys, it was a pleasure. Please continue to submit your questions. Go comment below. I want it. If you want that guide for hiring clinicians, we're happy to send it to you. We usually charge some money for it, but if you sneak in here, we'll send it your way. And go watch Neil's interview as well for some of the nuggets that he dropped about his early days in growing his cash pay group practice.